Welcome to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast, where we talk all things Panther City Lacrosse Club. Now here are your hosts, Nicholas and Andy.
Well, Panther City kicked off the season against Vancouver, which means lacrosse is officially back. Welcome everyone to Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast. I'm Nicholas, of course, joined by Andy.
Hello.
Panther City came in looking to start the season off on the right foot, and the right foot they started off on. They went into Vancouver with a 9 p.m. start time for the TSN Game of the Week.
Yeah, it's fun to see them get featured. I think last season they were only featured twice. And so, yeah, it was a bit of a later, kind of closer to West Coast time. But hey, being the featured game on TSN, can't argue with that.
There is one thing we did forget to mention about Vancouver last week when we were talking about getting ready for this game, and that's the head coach. In the offseason, Vancouver got a hold of the head coach Kurt Malawski, coming from Calgary, where he spent 10 seasons coaching the Calgary Roughnecks. Not only that, he won over 90 games and the NLL Cup in 2019. I mean, not only rebuilding the team, but getting a coach with that kind of resume. I mean, what does that do for a team coming into the new season?
I think it can only help them. Obviously, he's won a lot in the past, not only as a coach, but also during his playing career. If I'm not mistaken, his final season in the league, he won a title as well. So it's a great move by Vancouver to help establish a winning culture, and with someone who's that proven on multiple levels. And he's also a native of British Columbia, so I think it has that added benefit of, you have kind of a hometown kid coming back and helping grow the sport in that region.
Well, and you hardly ever see a coach coming off of a winning season come back to another team. And so it's kind of crazy, coming from Calgary and going to Vancouver. But like you said, he has kind of those like hometown roots there. And so I'm sure they were super excited about that. But I think that really, like you said, does help the team not only have a mentality of, hey, here's this coach who, had these winning seasons, knows what he's talking about, knows what he's doing. So obviously trying to head in the right direction with that. But yeah, I mean, it's something we forgot to mention last week, and I think it's something very important for Vancouver going forward in the season. But the game started. I was just glad, like you mentioned last week, I was very glad lacrosse is back from Panther City. But yeah, they came out with kind of a new attitude. Of course, just in Panther City fashion, Vancouver came out scoring first. Yeah, we talked about it last year. They like to let the opponent score first for some reason. Yeah,
I remember the first home game of last season, didn't Las Vegas score with less than a minute into the game?
Yeah, brand new team coming into town, and we're like, oh yeah, you guys can score first.
Yeah, Marcus Claret got open right in front of the crease, and he leapt and scored. Damude couldn't do anything about it, and that does tend to be a trend with Damude. He does seem to kind of start off slowly as he gets into his rhythm before he starts making some great saves.
Yeah, and we'll touch on Damude throughout the game because he actually ended up having a really good night. But
yes.
But yeah, I mean, Vancouver scores first, so I'm like, oh man, yeah, kind of here we go again kind of thing. But it didn't take long for us to get back in the game. Donville, coming off that Rookie of the Year season, he kind of picked up where he left off. He got a quick goal of his own, tied 1-1.
Yeah, there was great transition movement leading up to that goal. Started out with newcomer Brandon Goodwin, who is also filling in for Tyler Burton while he's on the IR. And we'll get into this a bit later. But he was pretty solid on his faceoffs in the first quarter. But so he ended up getting the ball off of the turnover, got it to Gaucher. Gaucher got it to Donville, and he did his thing, picked up right where he left off last year.
Yeah, and Panther City asked on social media, like, who was going to score first for the season. I was actually thinking Malcolm. I was thinking Will Malcolm because, it's just the season he had at the beginning of last year. But yeah, you forget Donville, man. He had a great season too, obviously. So it's not surprising to see him score first. But throughout that first quarter, especially right at the beginning, honestly, both defenses were playing really solid for not only Panther City but for Vancouver.
Yeah, there was aggression on both sides of it. At one point, Evan Messenger did get a little bit too aggressive and got holding call on him, but Vancouver couldn't take advantage of the power play. Killen did score from behind the net, but TK saw that I think his foot was in the crease, if I'm not mistaken. Or his toe dragged.
Yeah.
And so, they waved it off, and that kept us at 1-1.
Well, and that was so if you follow us on Twitter, I posted on there, dragging the foot in the NFL, great. And in the NLL, not so much.
Yep.
But yeah, stayed tied 1-1. Both defenses playing good, but then Vancouver came back. A player I had actually never heard his last name before, but his last name is Charlebides. Charlebides. There you go. He had a quick underhook goal, puts them up 2-1. I mean, honestly, it was kind of a weird quick goal too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a quick hitter, and he actually was one of their better players on offense throughout the night, and so he was able to put them up early. Yeah, that last name is a handful, even looking at the back of the jersey.
Right, exactly. I mean, it takes up the whole back, but yeah. So Vancouver goes up 2-1, and then honestly, just not a few minutes later, Vancouver scored again, up 3-1. Again, just remnants of last year.
Yeah, it was off of a violation we had. I think we had an over and back, and Vancouver didn't waste any time in getting down the floor, and then Ryan Martell quickly got one on us.
Yeah, and so, up to that point, I actually wrote this down in my notes while I was watching the game. Honestly, the defense was playing pretty solid. They were blocking shots. They were, like you said, being aggressive. It just, a bad time with a few fast breaks and little holes here and there. So, going after one quarter, we're down 3-1, but it wasn't a bad 3-1, I guess I should say.
Yeah, it definitely didn't feel insurmountable. Like Vancouver, yes, they scored, but they weren't absolutely clicking and whatnot. And both Damude and Aaron Bold, the Vancouver goalie, they were making good saves. But one kind of interesting tidbit was Vancouver got 8 more shots on goal. I think they got 15 attempts compared to our 7.
Yeah, and so they were aggressive on the offensive side, but the second quarter, that's when the offense started to wake up a little bit more for us. Rookie Ryan Sheridan, first impression is always the best impression sometimes, and definitely not the rookie I expected to see making an impact in this first game. He scores, and now we're only down 3-2.
Yeah, that was a great straightaway goal from the outside. He showed why he was the number 5 pick in this last draft, and Phil Caputo helped out with a great pick where he basically picked off Sheridan's guy and then moved to his own, running an interference to get Sheridan the open shot. So really good play.
Yeah, and he's obviously meshing with that offense really good right off the bat. But that happened, and then just craziness. 9 seconds. I mean, the face-off happens, and a Malcolm brother, still not Will Malcolm, unfortunately, but Tony Malcolm, right after the face-off, gets a quick goal, tied 3-3.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So Goodwin, his strategy is pretty interesting. So he's not necessarily going to win every face-off, but from the way that he works on the ball in there, he makes it so that the rest of Panther City has a good crack at it. So he was able to scoop it up backwards right to Hossack, and Hossack got it to Tony Malcolm for a great pass fake and then the quick strike in the net.
Yeah, that was a good quick goal too, because I mean, we literally just scored and then we had another score. You're talking about the face-offs. There were a few times where the face-offs got called against us, where maybe he was going after the player, not so much the ball.
Right.
And so that's something we can look out for as the year goes on. Obviously with Burton out, but yeah, 3-3, and then the next thing you know, like they're playing the defenses are playing really good against each other, but there's a huge hit on a Hossack as he had the ball, and I don't know if you saw it, but it's like the ball just popped out as he got hit.
Yeah,
and it started heading towards the bench, and I was like, okay, well, it's probably going to go out of bounds, but it somehow ended up in our hands, and then we get to Will Malcolm, and finally Will Malcolm showing what he did last year. It just memories of Philadelphia running through my head. He starts running towards the goal. He stops literally at the last second, lets the defender run right in front of him, shoots and scores. Honestly, definitely one of my play of the night contenders, but he puts us up 4-3.
Yeah, that was very opportunistic of Will Malcolm. Yeah, I don't remember if he had just come off the bench, but he had probably been hanging out at that part of the field. So kind of had more or less fresh legs. And once he scooped up that ball, he was just too quick for the defense to recover and was able to get the ball past Bowles.
Yeah. Well, and it wasn't like even a juke like he had last year. It was just like a quick stop. It was just a quick hesitation.
Yes.
To where the defender just, it shows you why he's an assistant captain this year, because he definitely knows how to take advantage of those opportunities. But up 4-3, and honestly, throughout that quarter too, something I saw our team, again, a difference from last year. I mean, we're talking about the defense, but even on offense, we were getting shots off and we were getting rebounds. That was something we had a really big problem with last year, was we would shoot and we would just turn it over. Like, we'd shoot early and we couldn't get rebounds, or we'd shoot late and then, the clock would reset and we would just wouldn't have a chance to get it. So, I mean, there was honestly a time where it seemed like a few minutes would go by and we would have the ball the whole time because we were getting rebounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there was probably a combination of guys that were in the right place at the right time with fortunate bounces, but also I think the size of the two rookies, Jason Knox and Sheridan, really helped out offensively. I don't think our players got pushed around quite as much as before. I know both those guys are like 6'4" and whatnot, and then of course first game the energy level is going to be high, and I don't remember if it already happened at this point or not, but there was some chippiness between both the teams.
Oh no, that was next in my notes. Yeah, Gaucher went in to try to get a goal. I mean, unfortunately, it got waved off after review. But as he was trying to make the goal, a defender came up against him, and then Sheridan came up and had a huge hit on Vancouver, and then that caused just kind of mass chaos for a minute.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that was when I don't remember whether it was Beers or someone else, but they got kind of sandwiched in between the two of them. And then I know Gautier's heel ended up being on the crease, but love the physicality of it. And then out of nowhere, Patton came in and kind of took down Beers with a quasi headlock, just kind of carrying over from last year when him and Austin Stotts got into it against San Diego.
Well, and it's again the physicality of the offense at that point. And Gautier, I mean, man, we talked about him last year. Obviously, not Rookie of the Year contender, but I thought he was a really good rookie part of the team. And so it's good to see him implemented into the offense more this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's always mixing it up. I know he was a former, I want to say he was a former D2 hockey player, so he doesn't mind mixing it up regardless of his size.
Yeah, so it'll be good to see what happens as the year goes on with him in the offense. But Warriors get a power play, unfortunately, and they get a goal, tying it back up 4-4. And at that point, I was like, okay, well, it's 4-4. We're getting close to halftime. This is a good steady pace for us to go. Honestly, it lines up with what you guessed it as, a good defensive game at that point, and really close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the one surprising thing of it, up to that point, Callum Crawford hadn't scored at all. He had gotten a decent amount of shots on goal, but none of them were going in, either too wide or just off, or credit to Vancouver's defense early on.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we'll talk about it after we finish it on what happened with Callum Crawford, but literally with 1.6 seconds left before the half, that's all the time he needs. And he shoots, he scores. We go into the half up 5-4. That was honestly a crazy sequence too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was. This is a bit of foreshadowing, but that was honestly my favorite goal that he scored that night. Just it was like he fired it through the trees. He didn't have that great an angle, but he was able to find the corner and get a pass goal. And so, yeah, I think it's something he definitely needed, and the team needed to end the half.
Yeah, and it was a good spark for the offense, obviously, going into the halftime. A good spark for the whole team. But, at halftime, up 5-4, defense is playing good. Damude, after giving up those, early goals, he kind of, like you said, he kind of settled down and played really good defense, not only going into the halftime, but as we'll talk about, going throughout the third quarter as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he only allowed one goal in that second quarter, And credit to him and all the defenders. They were making some great plays. I know Messenger ended up back in the penalty box for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Patton ended up in the penalty box some as well. But hey, you love the aggression and the intensity that those guys are playing with.
Well, and that's kind of what comes with, being more aggressive sometimes like that. I mean, you're going to get calls that go your way, and then you're going to get calls that go against you, and that's kind of what happens. That's kind of the name of the game in that area. But going into the halftime, I was like, oh, hey, I'm glad we're up 5-4. Good defensive struggle. Quarter 3 happens, and it like you said, foreshadowing. It's like something just went off. It's like halftime happened, and they're like, you know what? We're done here. One quick note right after halftime, Sheridan, again, trying to make a good impression. He tried just this off the wall, between the legs shot. I mean, it was nowhere close to the goal, but he got knocked off his feet after trying to make the shot. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad your presence on the field, but let's get you settled in and not too many trick shots like that right now.
The funny thing about that was you could tell Vancouver, the defenders probably didn't appreciate it because he got shoved pretty good afterwards. And then even when they were, cutting to commercial or showing highlights of the game, they showed that shot attempt, even though, like you said, it had no chance of getting in.
Right. But I mean, obviously he has the what do you want to call it? The swagger that says, hey, even if I'm going to try this shot, has no chance, I'm just going to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Showtime Jr. in the making.
Right. Well, speaking of Showtime, I think Colin Crawford decided enough's enough, because he just kind of took over in the third quarter. He scores, and you're like, oh, cool, we're up 6-4. This is great. Nope. A minute later, he scores again. And then 2 minutes later, he scores again. All of a sudden, we are up 8-4, and Colin Crawford is has 4 goals in a row right there.
Yep, he broke the tie, and just kind of the dam broke from there. And that first goal that he scored in the second half, he was using some great Phil Caputo picks, as Caputo always does. But the second and third goals, those were all Showtime. It was just him against a defense that, quite honestly, didn't look like they were respecting him. They were sagging off a bit or playing too soft, and he made them pay for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe some of the players saying that, thinking, oh, he's a little bit older, at the ripe age of what, 39? 39, we're sitting here like, oh my gosh, 39, that sounds like the, oldest player on the court, or on the field, which he is. But in sports, age doesn't matter when you got skill like his. Oh my gosh, I mean, that 4 in a row, that was crazy to watch. And then not only on top of that, like our defense was backing him up.
Yeah, the defense was playing so great the entire time. Not just Damude, not just any one guy, just everyone out there. Patrick Foley, Evan Messenger, Patton, Sellers, they were all doing great. And it's kind of interesting. At one point, Kurt Malosky actually gave his defense an offensive shift. So I don't know whether he was trying to light a fire under his offense, but it was kind of interesting to see the guys just go down the court and Malosky telling his offense to hang back. Let's see if these guys can have any better success.
Right. Well, and you again, you got to try different things to see what different results you get. I mean, Vancouver finally did score towards the end of the third, making it 8-5. But at that point, it seemed like even though they were only ahead 3 points, we were kind of getting a good control of the game, and I was kind of feeling really good going into the fourth quarter. Just not only with Crawford going off like that, but again, just everything settling down for us, it seemed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At that point, you knew that, okay, there's 15 minutes left, take care of business, and we should go home with a W.
Yeah, and taking care of business, we did. I mean, opening up the fourth, Patton gets a great transition goal, puts us up 9-5. That was another really good goal by him. I mean, if Crawford didn't have the night he had, I mean, that would be a good highlight right there.
Yeah. And you know me, I love my transition goals, and I love my transition goals even more when they come from a non-forward and non-transition player. So to see a defenseman get all the way down, and the general, for that matter, it was awesome to see.
Well, yeah, and so putting a little bit of space between us, but Vancouver kind of not going away. They got another goal. I mean, it was 9-6, but there's certain players who it's just only a matter of time before they start dialing in and figuring out like, all right, it's my turn. Phil Caputo, it's only a matter of time for him in a game, and he got a quick rebound shot that put some space between us. That put us up 10-6 at that point.
Yeah, it was another. He's kind of the classic near the goal, right place, right time kind of guy for us. I think Knox's shots sure pack a lot of punch on him.
Right.
But even though he missed it, the ball happened to bounce right into Caputo's stick, and he was able to basically catch a ball off guard because he hadn't recovered from Knox's shot to be able to score again.
Yeah, and again, Caputo. I mean, it does say something. Again, being over there, he does always seem to find the right spot to be in to get a lot of those rebounds. He did that a lot last year too. Quick rebound shots, or he was just kind of in the mix of things to get those rebounds and keep the offense going. But yeah, I mean, again, not to be overshadowed, but Crawford again scoring again, putting us up 11-6. I mean, I wrote down here the man had a night. On Twitter, all I could put is the Michael Jordan, the gif of him shrugging his shoulders as he runs down the court. I mean, that was Crawford on the first game of the season. He said, all right, it's my turn to take over.
Yeah, he certainly had himself a night. Not only that, but that fifth goal actually moved him into a tie for 10th place in career goals scored. So I think he's only 20 away from the next player on the list. So it'll be interesting to see if he manages to keep moving up during the season.
I mean, if he has more games like this,
that's just one game.
I mean, we still got 15 more to go. So yeah, he'll find a way to get through it. I'm sure he'll knock a few more spots off there, but yeah, I mean, that put us up 11-6. Again, Vancouver kind of staying in it. They got a goal, which that was kind of a weird goal too. So they were all behind. Yeah, they were all behind. Yeah, they were all behind the Damude, all behind the goal, and Damude's like, "Oh well, I'm gonna see what's going on." For some reason, I will say this: my parents, they always get mad at goalies in hockey whenever they're not in the goal. And sure enough, Damude's like, "Well, I'm gonna leave the goal for a second, see what's going on." And sure enough, Vancouver got the ball and he just kind of scooped it in. And I was like, well, that was, like you said, anticlimactic.
Yeah, it was funny. But, props to Kurt Milosky for throwing the flag out. Because originally the ref called it a crease violation on Bowering. But then I don't think Milosky even looked at the replay. And who knows if he even had a good view. He probably just wanted to just try to get points any way he could. So he threw it out. And upon a replay, they were able to call it. So, it was kind of funny. It seemed like they were just there behind the goal for 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's just like they were staying back there forever.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, thankfully that only cut the deficit to 4 points.
Yeah, well, and that was it. I mean, that was it for the night. The rest of there was only a few minutes left after that goal, and Panther City started the season 1-0, winning 11-7. Again, like you predicted, a very defensive struggle at first, but we started to pull away in the second half. I was hoping for more offense, but I think that's something we'll grow into as the year goes on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and credit to Vancouver. All things considered, they did only hold us to 11 points, but I think they're still figuring out their offense, especially with some of their departures this past season. Obviously, future Hall of Famer Sean Evans retired. Wish him the best of luck. But yeah, with as good a coach as Kurt Milosky is, it's just going to take time getting his guys to gel.
Yeah, and there'll be something to look at as the season goes on, especially with this format of no divisions and taking those top teams. They could find a way to sneak into those last spots at the end of the season, depending on how it plays out. But yeah, Panther City starts 1-0. So we're going to touch on a few quick things. So obviously Crawford having a crazy night. Well, they came out after the game, post-game interview, we found out kind of what triggered that. He had a statement after the game. He said, they started to fall, but I kind of got angry. Number 19 on their team chirped me for a while and said I was struggling in the first half and told me I was washed up, and it kind of lit a fire under me. I'm a professional athlete, and I have an ego. Like anyone else plays sports. Like, that's the fuel I needed to prove I could still do it. It's one of those things you don't... this guy's a future Hall of Famer. He's going to be, one of the top 10, scorers for the NLL. Why even poke the bear?
Yeah. Don't poke the bear. Don't poke Showtime.
Well, yeah, it just didn't make sense. And I mean, okay, it does make sense. Obviously, you're in the moment, and it's a sport, and there's a lot of stuff that goes through with adrenaline when you're on the field like that. But man, I think he was the wrong person to poke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with the game he had been having up to that point. A player as good as Crawford, things are bound to change in his favor if he kept at it.
Yeah, and so we're to the wise as the year goes on. Don't call Crawford washed. Even Coach T. Carey after the game on Crawford, he was quoted in saying, I said it before and I'll say it again, Crawford can single-handedly take over a game, and he did tonight. He shot the ball real well. He's a leader. He's our offensive leader. Guys looked at him when maybe we're fighting it a little bit. I loved his emotion on the bench and his leadership. His 5 goals were really good, and the leadership and the stuff is what we were working for, and he did a really good job with that. Yeah, I mean that goes into what we talked about last year with Crawford coming in, and Tracy knowing him, and just that connection that they had even beforehand, and now even so with him being a coach and Crawford still playing.
Uh-huh. Yeah, their connection throughout the years, even back from when TK was playing, has certainly helped them out when they acquired him last season, and then going into this season where he's got a full training camp and preseason with Panther City under his belt.
Well, and he's a player, with that experience that the other players, especially the younger players, can look towards. And if they can look at him, especially after this game, and say, look, if that man is scoring 5 goals, then I should try to score 5 goals. And it's kind of crazy how that can have a ripple effect. He is doing his job. He's showing up like that. The others want to match that intensity and want to match, that play on the field.
Absolutely. And I think that it shows, this past game shows that they did just that.
Oh yeah. Well, we finally made it to the regular season, which means it is time for our first of this season, our first Mr. Andrews stats of the game. Mr. Andrew, what stats do you have for us on this game?
I usually tend to talk about both teams evenly, but what can I say? This is a Panther City podcast, so most of these stats tonight are kind of geared towards a hometown team. So first off, there were 4 players with 4 or more points, showing how evenly distributed and balanced things were on offense. Donville, Will Malcolm, Gauthier, and Showtime all had 4, and it wasn't necessarily all assists or all goals. It was a nice mix. Obviously, Crawford had his 5 goals on 12 shots, which is amazing, but the ball was moving around really well when he wasn't doing his one-on-one wizardry. And Nick Damude, he had himself a game. You've heard us talk about him all podcast long so far. I don't know whether he's shed some weight this year, or maybe he just is cutting his beard a little different, but he seems a bit lighter on his feet. And one thing I noticed, a lot of those low saves that he had, yeah, they were really good. And he even stopped a few one-on-one transition breaks, which was really impressive. He only allowed 7 goals on 51 shots for a stellar 86% save percentage. So really impressive stuff by Nick. And then we'll talk about the rookies a little bit. Jason Knox did fail to score, but he started his career with 2 assists, so it's not like he wasn't involved in the offense. And man, his shot attempts, I think he got he got 5 of them off, and each time he got one off, I felt like you could hear it throughout Rogers Arena.
Right.
So it'll be a fun sign of things to come. And then, as we mentioned, to start off the second quarter, Ryan Sheridan found the net So that's a great way to start both Knox and Sheridan's careers. And then, we've talked about Damude already, but God, the entire defense, you love to see the way they played. Matt Hossa kind of led the charge with, he had 10 caused turnovers. Oh no, sorry. The team had 10 caused turnovers and Hossa got 3 of them, kind of leading the charge there. The entire team had 9 blocks, led by Josh Medeiros' 3. That's another thing. Josh Medeiros, he seemed to be scoring every game last season. This game tonight, he didn't score per se, but he was still doing things to contribute, whether it be on the offensive end or the defensive end. I think he drew at least 1, probably 2 penalties on the defense, just being a pest to the other team. And so, yeah, he had 3 blocks, and then Hutchinson and Pattinson both had 2 as well. So really good stuff from both the offense and the defense.
Well, yeah, and it just, again, it's a full team effort. And like you said, even the ones that maybe didn't score or didn't have as many assists or didn't make as big of an impact as we thought they would, were still out there contributing to this win. And so that's what I mean. It just felt like a really good all-around game for both offense and defensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't even go into Phil Caputo because he's the kind of player you see and you think, man, I wish we kept stats on screens and pick set, because he opens up the shooters so well.
Yeah, and again, it's what we touched on, not only with the stats, but like it is definitely a thing to look forward to as the season goes on. Because if this is the first game, I can't wait to see what happens the next game, and as the season goes on, as they just get even more and more comfortable with each other. But of course, that is Mr. Andrews' stats of the game. Yeah, you touched on it. Damude, I'll say this. Look, we have a Damude appreciation post on Instagram, and he well deserved it in this game. And then, like you said, the stats don't lie on that one. So if he can keep that percentage up, we talked about him not being included in that top 5 goalie list for last year, or not top 10 even. If he keeps this up, he's going to be up there this year.
Yeah, I'm sure that served as motivation. And, I think in previous years, he said normally Coach TK wants to see that save percentage be around 80%. He cleared that easily. Mm-hmm. So. Oh,
yeah. And against an offense who is still trying to figure things out together, but didn't have, there was a fair share of high percentage shooters on that Vancouver team.
Oh, yeah. And one thing I failed to mention, so they had 51 shots on goal against Panther City. That was 10 more than we had. But I think speaking of the defense again, the quality of shots that Vancouver was getting wasn't quite what Panther City was getting. Like each time they were shooting it, there was one point where I think in the around the third or second quarter, that whenever Vancouver was able to get a shot inside, Panther City made them pay for it. Like, not only would they miss the shot, but then a guy would come out of nowhere and knock them down. So it's kind of like, hey, if you want to come to our territory and try to score that close to the goal, you're going to feel it in the morning.
Well, yeah. And it goes, again, like we touched on earlier, that aggression on the team. So, well, thank you for those stats, which brings us, of course, to the Cool Cat plays of the game. I'll kick off on this one. For me, the Cool Cat play of the game, as good as Crawford was, I still have to give props to Will Malcolm. The way he just orchestrated that goal, stopping and let the defender just kind of pass in front of him. It was like theater, like just seeing it go by. I could watch that highlight over and over again and just be like, yes, that's what I want to see all season. That's of course my play of the game. What about for yourself?
I've got 2. I think I'll say this first one as the honorable mention. Crawford's first goal to get things going for him. Just striking the top right corner through traffic, hitting it at a tough angle. You could tell Bolt didn't even know what was happening, and before he knew it, the ball was in the net. So that's my honorable mention, probably by hair to my actual Cool Cat play of the game. With Liam Patton's the entire transition goal sequence. It didn't start with Patton. First, Evan Messenger's great pressure on Keegan Ball. He forced a tough shot by Ball, which ended up getting blocked by Damude. And then as it ricocheted off of him, John Donville picked it up and he threw the outlet to the general. And then he it was like a kid in a candy store. He's like, oh, they found me. There's no one in front of me. Yeah, I'm going to score this thing. And so just seeing him run it down and get that goal was awesome. That was my play of the game.
Nice. Well, yeah, and I can't wait to see when they come back home to see some of those players get some energy from the hometown crowd. Of course, that's our Cool Cat plays of the game, which leads us to our Big Cat players of the game. I'll let you go first. So who is your Big Cat player of this game? Like there's much question.
I don't have many words to say. Well, first off, honorable mention to the entire defense: Patrick Foley, Liam Patton, Connor Sellers, newcomer Brent Mitchell gave us some good minutes, Evan Messenger, Dylan Hutchinson, and then plus the usual transition guys like Medi, Tony, newcomer Goodwin, and then obviously Damude in the net. You know, Vancouver's not an offensive juggernaut, but we seemed really quick and physical for the entire game. Made life difficult for them on that side of the ball. But all that being said, I'm going to have to go with Callum Crawford, and I only have 4 words to say why. Don't call him old.
I mean, that's all you have to say, yeah. Don't call him old, because he'll prove you wrong every time. Yeah, I mean, for me, I will say, honorable mention, Ryan Sheridan. Like, rookie coming in, again, not the rookie I was kind of expecting to see make an impact. I was actually kind of expecting to see more knocks, make an impact in that first game. But, I mean, he kind of showed up, and I hope that's things to see as the year goes on. But, yeah, mine, you had 4 words. I have 1 word. Showtime. That's it. That's it.
Was apt.
That's it. That's all you need. And that's, yeah. I mean, my gosh, the guy had a night, like you said, in 10th place now with the scoring record. He showed why he is the vet that he is. You know, if you want to compare to something, look at Aaron Rodgers from a few years ago. Everybody was like, oh, he's too old. He's getting too old to play quarterback. He's washed up. And what does he do? He has 2 MVP seasons in a row. And he's like, yeah, go ahead. Keep telling me that I'm not that good. I mean, obviously this year didn't work out for him, but it was motivation. And that's what happened with Crawford. He heard that from Vancouver, and he's like, all right, I'll show you that I'm washed up. I'll show you that I'm old.
And you can definitely tell that this point in his career, he's definitely a man on a mission. And he's brought up before, him and TK weren't able to win a title together when they were playing. And that's still eluded TK as a coach and still eluding Crawford as a player. So I think they're both hoping that this is the season they can put it all together.
Well, if they keep the run they're going on right now, I mean, that's some pretty good goals to reach this year. But of course, those are our Big Cat players of the game. Final thoughts on the game. I mean, I'll just say this, and I alluded to it earlier, and I touched on it earlier. For me, this is honestly, and of course, it's the first game of the season, and of course, this is only season 3 for Panther City. But this was the first game I watched from beginning to end. And I thought to myself, wow, that was the most complete game from both sides that I've seen, probably in the 3 seasons they've been there. And it's good to see just the changes that have been implemented in the off season, from the defense to the offense to players just making that impact and meshing together just so easily right now. And it was great to see, and I hope that's something that continues to go forward in the season. What about for yourself?
Yeah, great way to start the season off with a road victory. I don't remember how we did against Vancouver in our inaugural season, but I know we currently have a 4-game win streak against them after sweeping them last year, including that 20-7 blowout. So this one, obviously the margin wasn't that big, but it was nice to see what felt like a complete win on both sides of the ball. But even before Crawford kind of went off, there were enough other guys that were helping carry the load and keep things close, keep it at 4-4 until Crawford finally found a shooting touch. So just seeing that, guys helping each other out, whether it be opening each other up with picks, getting them the ball when they were open, the defense swarming and playing aggressive, and then even doing some nice things in transition. We haven't even gone over all the I think it was Foley that had he had a would-be transition goal that could have made it 12-7. And then, we would even, so many of the goals that we didn't score, we were still peppering Aaron Bolt with the ball. It seemed like every time down the court, putting pressure on him to perform at his best. And thankfully, we were able to find enough open spots in the defense. So it was just really good to see, and I think it creates great momentum, not just for going into Las Vegas, but for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and it's good for the team to start off the season with a win like that. It just kind of shows that the process and the transactions that they had in the off season are ones that are paying off. We touched on last week, certain players, unfortunately, either get traded or released or whatever, and it's very much a trust the process kind of moves. The process is paying off so far. I know we're only one game in, but it's good to see the process is going the way it should be going. Well, of course, we leave Vancouver with a win, starting us off undefeated this season, which leads us to this Sunday. The first Sunday home opener I can remember, because usually it's either Saturday night or Friday night, but a Sunday afternoon, which is interesting, but at the same time coincides with surrounding sports. Not saying that the Cowboys are playing that night, but it has a good start time because it starts at 3 p.m. and it'll be over right before Sunday Night Football. So, but yeah, Panther City coming home off of that really good overall performance in Vancouver against the Las Vegas Desert Dogs, who Las Vegas is coming off of a loss from Albany, but they looked like they were even growing from year one to year two, because that was a really close game. Albany didn't pull out, started pulling away until close to the end of the fourth quarter. But Las Vegas coming in, looking to kind of play spoiler to Panther City coming home next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you brought up the sort of mini rivalry we have with them coming into the league in successive seasons, and I think that kind of carries over. Even that first home game against them when Burton and another guy got into it, kind of helped kick things off and kind of showed Las Vegas what the NLL is all about. They had a new acquisition, Casey Jackson. He came over from the Seals, I believe, and he scored 4 goals against Albany. And so he's a guy that we might need to watch out for. Beyond that, they've still got Jack Hanna and other guys that did some damage against us last year. That being said, I do think we should still have the upper hand against them, especially at home.
Well, yeah, and you hope that home crowd and that home feeling will kind of energize Panther City, even just, with the energy in the building to get past a Las Vegas team coming in to prove something in year two, kind of like what we did last year. But I will have to ask, coming into this next game, do you feel like the defense will keep what happened in game one going on in game two, especially not only just the defense, but Nick Damude having that great goalie play?
I would hope that they're able to string both together. Consistency is obviously one of the keys for the team this year, because you don't want to have kind of a Jekyll and Hyde personality on either side of the ball. But as long as the effort's there and the physicality, then I think they can do it, especially against these teams that I'm not going to say they're lesser teams than the elite teams, but they are still figuring out their own identity, being young and not having had a whole lot of success in the league just yet. So in that sense, I do think Panther City is a little bit further ahead on the curve than they are.
Well, yeah, and like you said, both teams had transitions in the off season to help with their team. I feel like the defense is something I definitely want to keep an eye on this year, just because it was a huge focus in the off season. So hopefully they can keep that momentum going from game one to game two with that great defensive play. But not only that, but will the offense, will Crawford not only continue his streak in this game, but will the rest of the offense kind of build off of his spark from the first game?
oddly enough, I'm less concerned about the offense than the defense, knowing that Crawford got in a full season and then had someone talk some smack to him that first game that hopefully will carry on throughout the year. The additions of Knox and Sheridan, they're only going to get better as they get more games under their belt. Reigning Rookie of the Year, Donville, he's going to be a great playmaker for the team. Gauthier is going to get in there and mix it up. Caputo is going to do his thing when he's out there. So on offense, I'm honestly not too worried. Maybe if once we face some of these Eastern teams that we didn't play last year, like Toronto and whatnot, things could get a bit dicier. But at least with a Vancouver, say a Las Vegas, we have a bit of built-in familiarity from playing with them last year. And I don't remember, did we sweep Las Vegas too?
We did, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think Vegas beat us once last year, which was kind of expected in their first year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's not to say that this is going to be a game where we're going to walk all over them, but I do think, with how the offense finished this week's game and just the addition of talent, Showtime having a training camp under his belt, I'd like to see the offense build on what they did last game and actually put up more than 11 points this time around.
Well, and yeah, I think, again, that kind of coincides with that home crowd and that home energy. Hopefully that'll kind of get the rest of the offense, picking up along with Crawford. Quick side note, you talked about like those more juggernaut teams and maybe the ones out east. The power rankings from the NLL came out today. I don't know if you saw, but
I saw
the top 8, and Panther City is not in the top 8, which is fine. I get it. We're in our third season. We're coming off of a year where we did make the playoffs, but we had a playoff loss. But I don't know. I think so. Rochester Nighthawks is number 7. Of course, Calgary is sitting there at number 6. Top ones is Buffalo, San Diego, Toronto, Halifax. Which, by the way, I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of the Halifax game from Friday night, but you want to talk about a beatdown. That Halifax came out in this season and just wanted to beat everybody by 10 points, it seemed like. But your top 4 teams you expect to be there, but I really do think we're right in that mix with Philadelphia and Rochester and even Calgary at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I might have engaged in a few verbal fisticuffs on that Facebook thread with it, because it's like, okay, yeah, if you want to argue Buffalo, San Diego, Toronto, even Colorado, the cream of the crop of the league, they didn't play a single game, so they're not really proven that they're better or worse, and we know how good they were last year. It's like, okay, I can kind of buy that argument, but I mean, people saying that, Vancouver is a rebuilding team, even with Kurt Malosky. It's like, be that as it may, Philly made the rankings, and they beat the Riptide.
Right.
Who didn't do that great last year either. So, I don't know. I know there's only 8 spots, but I would have at least liked to see the letter T for a tie next to one of those spots and Panther City sneaking in. But, hey, I mean, that's why they just got to take care of the games in front of them, and hopefully they'll get on the power rankings eventually.
Well, yeah, and not only that, but it's motivation for Panther City. All of this is just motivation for Panther City. They look at that and they say, "Oh, hey, we're still not a top 8 team, even though one of the teams in the top 8 lost this weekend, and even though some of the teams didn't even play." I mean, again, like you said, I agree with those top 3, because even if they don't play, I mean, they're NLL champions. They're ones that had a great record last year, went deep in the playoffs. But yeah, it's nothing but motivation for Panther City.
Yeah, I will point out we are the only playoff team that won in week 1 that did not make this list.
Yeah, well, again, we'll just have to beat Las Vegas and kind of work our way back up in there. But yeah, so that of course leads us to kind of our expectations with Las Vegas. Look, I know Las Vegas is coming into this season wanting to prove something, just like Panther City was last year. And honestly, I do think that they have a team built and a mentality built that could lead them into a playoff spot. Like I said, it's like Vancouver. It could get one of those last playoff spots and sneak in at the end of the year. But we're still kind of, if you want to call this a rivalry, we are still kind of I would say the bigger brother in this scenario.
Bigger.
Just the, with how we play and the expectations going into the season. I would say Panther City definitely, putting a good game together. I don't know. Look, I'm going to be honest. Panther City will probably go down 2-0, and we'll be like, "What is happening?" They'll probably score within the first minute, and then another one in a minute after that. So, 3 minutes in, we'll be down 2-0. But I don't think this will be as defensive a struggle of a game as we had up against Vancouver. So I think the offense does show up. Not like that, but I think we show up and try to prove a point. I'm going to say it's going to be kind of like last year when we went against Vegas. I see a score of, I'm going to say a win. We win 13-6.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to say we just kind of show up this week, and I don't know. I mean, if Crawford is feeling right, he might have another 5-goal game.
I think I'm going to spot Las Vegas one more point than they scored against Albany. Even though I'd like to think we've got a stronger defense than Albany, I'd also like to think Las Vegas has a bit more motivation to get out there and play well. So I think they're going to end up scoring 11, but Panther City's going to score 14.
14-11. So another close game. You're really good on these. Like, hey, it's going to be a good close kind of game. No blowouts this year. At least not yet.
I will say I tend to set expectations not necessarily low, but kind of moderate. So if we ever do blow out a team, then it's like a nice, pleasant surprise.
So if there's ever another 20-7, we'll be like, oh, hey, that was good.
Yeah, that was. Well, didn't that tie was that the ties point total last year? Or maybe
I think so. Well, it was like 20, and then I think, I want to say even Buffalo had one that was like 21 to something at some point.
Gotcha.
But,
yeah, that one surprised me.
Yeah, which seeing this game, I'll say this now. I know Buffalo is next year and a game to look forward to in the future, but that's a game I'm already excited to see because, as we touched on in the season preview, that's going to be a measuring stick. That's going to be a game that says, "Hey, are we here? Are we there yet? Or are we still? Do we still have a ways to go?" Mm-hmm. And so, I know it's only been one game, but and you should only focus one game at a time. But that is one I definitely have my sights set on now.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I would argue they're in some ways a better test for us than a championship winning team like the Mammoth, because whereas the Mammoth, whether due to injuries or just bad matchups or for whatever reason, even though they always enter the playoffs kind of with the weaker record, Buffalo's dominant through the regular season as well, and the playoffs for the most part. And so to face a team like that in the regular season, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and so we'll definitely talk about that game more when we get to it. But of course, we should look at the here and now. And right now, Panther City is undefeated. Coming into this week's game against Las Vegas, the home opener is here. I mean, we'll be there. I really hope to see a good turnout. I definitely want to try to get there a little bit earlier, catch some of the tailgating that happened last year. Hopefully we'll see some people out there that we saw and just kind of have a good home crowd for Panther City. Because, I think this team can get one of those higher spots in the playoffs this year. Can't not only make the playoffs, but get one of those higher spots and host a game. And I just want us to show up.
Yeah, indeed. Hey, what was Coach TK's goal? Championship contention by year 3?
Yeah. Oh, we're on track.
yeah, definitely on track.
Well, as always, thank you all for listening. Be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And of course, check out our full videos on YouTube. Thank you all again. I am once again Nicholas.
And I'm once again Andy.
And we'll see you all next time.
Sweet. Cheers, y'all.